telling me how you've been doing no caffeine, no nicotine.
Yeah.
How's that been going?
I just started it, so we'll see how it goes. I want to wean myself off of those things and, you know, I think it's important to set rules for yourself every now and then, right? Because if you do a streak, right, you might just say, all right, I'm tempted this moment. All right, let me just do it. But if you frame it in like this way of like, I'm doing this and it's a rule, when rubber hits the road and when you do get that temptation, like hopefully this concept of the rule is strong enough for you such that you don't actually do it and that you are able to keep the streak for a month, 2 months, and continually on into the future. So if you're someone who has bad habits, I would recommend, tracking a streak of like not doing this thing and making a hard rule around it. And then once you get to a point where you're like 20 days in and it's like more work to put in that you didn't do it that day, then and you're already at a point where it's like I don't even think about that thing anymore, then maybe you can stop tracking it and just continue on into your life knowing that you're someone who doesn't drink or doesn't do nicotine or something like that. And you'll just say no if it's ever around or offered or whatever. So, but in the beginning, I think it's important to like track your streaks and do that stuff. And I also just generally think it's obviously important and healthy to cut out things that are eventually bad for you, such as overdoing, caffeine and nicotine and stuff.
So what's the main reason behind trying to avoid them for you?
Well, the caffeine, it gets excessive when you start to do it in a very high, because um I was doing probably like 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine a day, like an energy drink or two every day. And that's not good. It's not good for your health, for your sleep, and you don't want to be so reliant on one thing. I think a sweet spot would probably be like a small cup of coffee in the morning, like, that's pretty much it. And anything more than that is excessive and kind of like dwindling your brain, your brain health and, all that stuff. So I just don't think it's healthy. It's just excessive and you're leaning on
Yeah.
something too much.
Yeah, what about so mainly sort of for caffeine, it seems like the health and honestly, I think sleep is the biggest argument against caffeine if because if you're not balanced with it and you don't just have it in the
In the
morning,
morning. Yeah.
you can end up having sleep problems, which is ultimately very bad for your health. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. What about like kind of the difference in your mental state once you've arrived back at a steady state where you're not like craving it at all, like any type of stimulant, caffeine, nicotine, or otherwise.
I just
Um,
think that state's very good as well because I've been able in the past when I've really weaned down on caffeine and stuff, you get into a more stable, constant energy state. Whereas when you start getting on all these different things, it's just so fluctuating. And if you say do like Nicorette or something, like you could be like very tired, like after, when you're coming down. Same thing with caffeine and stuff. And then like it almost is like a performance B enhancer after a certain point. So
because
I
of
think the
the
come downs and stuff.
come
Yeah.
downs. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think like that can definitely be annoying. I mean, when it's active, um, I think that obviously is a very powerful state because you're like very focused, you got a lot of energy mentally. You can definitely have some increased mental clarity. But it's interesting, like I think that balance that you're just talking about, sort of like the more stable energy level, is it definitely yields like a different style of like thinking and decision making because I don't know if you've ever had this, but I know I've definitely experienced this. Is like if I just had like a big cup of coffee or an espresso or something and I'm feeling pretty jolted, um, my kind I think like my dopamine is like amplified. So like if I think I have like a decent idea about something, in my mind it's like a way better idea than it actually is in reality. And I'm a lot less likely to identify the negatives or the drawbacks in something. Um, and so I'll just make like more irrational I'll just get way too excited about something that's not even that like not actually, you know what I mean? Like it's not
But
actually that
it's
thing.
good to get excited about stuff. That's why that's why it's still helpful because it does
Right.
give you optimism and stuff. So,
Yeah.
and optimism is very important. So,
Yeah, totally. I think, I heard someone say this, but, you know, sometimes caffeine, nicotine, these kinds of stimulants can just be good in the, well, a good quote I heard is like, "There's a time and place for every substance."
Mm,
Um, so it's possible that, you know, maybe you just lean on caffeine when you had bad sleep, because that will happen naturally. Like, you'll just have a night of bad
yeah.
sleep, and then maybe, oh, you've got an important thing to do that day, have a cup of coffee, but I if it's not, like, something that gets ingrained into your routine, then you won't become reliant on it. So it's more just a crutch when you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want
That's
to get, I'm just way too deep into some of these things. And you get to a point where you're like, dude, like you gotta chill, you gotta stop. And that's why I'm starting. So I'll update you guys how it goes. But yeah, I would recommend sometimes you gotta take an assessment of where you're at and then start tracking a habit, you know, and start a streak and give yourself like a rule to actually make sure you hold to it.
Yeah, I've been pounding caffeine and nicotine lately, especially today, just because. So have you heard about this geomagnetic storm that's been kind of hitting the northern
No.
latitudes? So I don't know exactly what it is, just from like a technical perspective, but from what I understand, geomagnetic storm is basically something that occurs where it usually occurs when there was like a solar flare or some sort of cosmic event that causes some disruption in like the normal magnetic field that surrounds Earth. You know what the northern lights are, right? Aurora borealis. You know what those are?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how they occur or why, but it has something to do with the difference in like the magnetism at the North Pole, right? That's like generally the idea is like there's some difference in like magnetic field up there that causes some like light refraction or something where you can see these like green patterns in the sky, which is really really pretty. But there's this geomagnetic storm recently and over this weekend, so from like Friday afternoon through I think Sunday or Monday, um, northern latitudes, but much more south than is typically required for to see the aurora borealis, are able to see the aurora borealis. So that means like Oregon, Washington, just like sort of much lower, much more southern, but still northern hemisphere altitude latitudes can see the northern lights. And so I last night I went with a couple friends to go see the try to see them in Oregon. And so we drove out to three different places to try to see them, and we couldn't see them last night. Apparently, we just like missed like they weren't visible last night, which is a huge shame because Friday night they were visible. But we drove out to try to see them, didn't see them, but we still ended up being able to find like a really good spot for stargazing. We were out in like the like middle of like rural, um, sort of northeastern Oregon, and it was actually really cool. We were driving on this highway, like sort of like in this kind of like high desert climate or area, and drove off the like came off the highway onto this little road, and the road like immediately turned into like a gravel road, and we're just in the middle of nowhere. And we just like parked on the gravel road and like walked off the road a little bit into this little clearing area, set up a couple camping chairs, looked up, and it was just horizon to horizon was like such amazing star visibility. And this is at like 2 a.m. Just out in the middle of nowhere in Oregon, and we lit up a couple cigars and just relaxed and looked at the stars and stuff, which was
Who are
really
you
cool.
with?
Coworker and his friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was really nice, but I got back at like 4:30 a.m. So
Yeah.
4:30 a.m., fall asleep. I forgot to put on like my blacked out eye mask, and my like the window like that's right by my bed is eastern facing, so I got a ton of sunlight right in the morning, and immediately would just like woke up. And I don't know if you know how it works, but like as soon as sunlight like hits your eyelids when you're sleeping, your body starts producing cortisol, which is supposed to wake you up, and like you can feel that like you just feel a little bit more like stressed and unrelaxed, and that's usually what will wake you up actually, is that spike in cortisol. And because I didn't have my eye mask on, like I immediately like woke up like 2 hours after I went to bed, and then put on the eye mask
Yeah.
and tried to get a little bit more sleep. Slept for another few hours, but very low
Do you
quality.
do you sleep with an eye mask consistently or
No, normally I don't. In fact, I like the sun to wake me up. It's like just better,
yeah.
I think, for you.
Yeah.
It's also kind of like a natural alarm clock. You don't have to like wake up at the exact moment,
Yeah.
right? It's more like more in line with your circadian rhythm because your body will wake you up when you're sort of,
Yeah.
outside of, like, a REM cycle or something. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, I have the eye mask just in case, right, as, like, a
Yeah.
sort of insurance policy, but I forgot to wear it last night, which would have been the, ideal time to do it, so,
Yeah.
anyway, I've been pounding caffeine, and I'm chewing a piece of nicotine gum right now.
So
But
he's
yeah, it was
wired.
I wouldn't even say I'm wired, it's almost, like, not working, I'm just trying to stay
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. I'm feeling this is my first day of no caffeine, so the headache hasn't hit yet. I'm sure it will probably today, like tonight or tomorrow, but um I'm feeling pretty tired. Like it's weird because it feels like such a nice relaxed tired because I've just been drinking like 500 milligrams of caffeine like every single day and my body's like finally some deep relaxation. Like so I feel super chill. I'm like
There you go.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's worth it.
do you know the neurochemistry there? I could take a stab, I think I know it is.
Adenosine.
Yep, the adenosine receptors. Yep, you
Yeah.
have just a lot of open adenosine receptors, which just means you're not gonna the tired chemicals are still flowing through
Hmm.
and, keeping you nice and relaxed, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Anyway